Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining the 2019 WISPA Board of Directors question and answer debate. We have a very long list of people to speak. We have solicited questions from the membership. Myself, Brian Young, will be organizing the debate and trying to make sure that we stick to our time frames and can move along things as quickly as possible. So the individuals that are running for this election, there's been some talk on the lists as well as Facebook about how great to have this lineup. WISPA will be lucky to have any of these. We wish we could have all of the panelists to be actually on our board to help guide things, but unfortunately, there's only 3 spots open for the bylaws. But please try to keep your minds open as you go through the election, and also listening to the questions that we have for everybody. But with that, I will go ahead and get started with the first question. For everybody else's knowledge, we are going to try to keep the answers limited to 30 to 45 seconds so that we can try to give every candidate the opportunity to answer the questions completely. So with that, Brian Worthen, you can be our first up, but the question number 1 is, with much angst in our industry from the state and local regulations, franchise requirements to build areas where ILECs are excluded and CLEC statuses don't matter, ordinances on antennas that make it difficult to cost-effectively deploy, unfair funding programs that force companies to defend the overbuilding of privately funded build-outs, as a board member, how can WISPA leverage itself effectively to support our members at the state where so much harm is being inflicted today? Brian Worthen, if you would please go first. Brian?
I don't see him in the list of staff today.
He is on as a attendee, so I'll unmute him. Brian, how about that? Can you talk, Brian? Brian? Okay. Well, hopefully Brian can join us on the bridge. I thought I saw him and unmuted him. We'll go with Garth.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, at least my audio works. I think the answer to this question for focus at state and local regulations is basically we've got to have increased membership engagement at the local level. This is something that during my first 2 years on the board, I was actually the state coordinator committee chairman. Unfortunately, I was not allocated any budget those years due to our focus on being able to fund a paid president position, but this year we were able to actually fund some money for the current chair of the state coordinators committee, Todd Harpist, who's also running for re-election, to host 4 regional advocacy training meetings to help our members know what to do and say to basically work with their local state legislatures. And those are coming up throughout the month of July. And I would just encourage everybody to register and attend the closest one of those sessions to it, because the way we get across our point at the state and local level is engagement of our local members in each community.
Okay, great. Thank you. Dave Giles?
Yeah, thank you. And thank you all for caring about WISPA this much. I believe the state coordinator has a big duty in this position to get the information back to the board and see in which ways we can help. There are many different issues in different states. So it equals show up and speak up and then get up and do it again. But we can't expect to change all the rules that took 40 years to put in place or haven't been in place that long to change for our one-time show up. It takes consistency and a lot of work.
Thank you. Keith?
Hi, thank you. So anybody who reads the mailing list knows that I've been railing for state level support and advocacy for a long time. So I think that's where it starts. one thing we need to do is get more funding for the state coordinator program. I know that Todd has been pushing for that. It just wasn't in the budget this year. We also need to empower the state coordinators with tools and resources to be able to communicate with members in the state as well as the legislature. And then I'd also like to see WISPA file comments on specific state level issues where applicable.
Okay, great. Jeremy.
Yes, hi, thank you. And I want to, reiterate what we're hearing from Dave and Garth and Keith. And honestly, I'm from a state personally where the natural challenges far outweigh any state level imbalances. But I do have some experience, working with state level advocacy, particularly with broadband development advisory type committees. At the national level, WISPA has a number of seats on the BDAC. What I'd like to see is us, for states that actually do have committees that are developing lists, let's be able to make sure that we can support that, state level operation. Now, as Keith said, perhaps some filings. In this case, as the state level coordination, budget increases, I think we can definitely do more there. And as I said, I'm willing to learn about what's going on in other states because I can see that problem, could be in the future for my own as well.
Okay. We'll try Brian Worthen again to see if he's been unmuted. Brian, can you talk?
Testing, 1, 2, 3.
There you go.
All right. I think there's a couple things to be done. One is policy work at the local level and meeting with local community. We've had some great success in local communities, and we've had some failures as well. There's a number of firms out there selling ordinances and selling ordinance templates to communities. And when you're serving one community, it's easy to go meet with the community. It's easy to participate at a city council level. But when you're in 5 communities, 10 communities, 90 communities, it becomes more difficult. And so there's a certain amount of policy work to be done at a local level, and it requires local involvement. And there's some education with regards to that. And then the other aspect is to take advantage of policy work at the FCC, the 5G and the overarching, catalog that encompasses is great, but the FCC as a result is making communities frustrated with their requirements for small cell. So it's a balance. It's a balance between national policy and local policy, and the only way to bridge that gap is to educate your own community on what needs to be done, and that requires an education, and we've had to learn that the hard way, and I think other WISPA members can benefit from that.
All right, thank you. Todd?
Thank you, Brian. In my first year here as state coordinator chair, I see the importance of needing to allocate budget in 2020 and beyond towards the state coordinator committee efforts at both the state and local levels where our grassroots advocacy can begin. While running for the board last year, the issues mentioned in this question were a huge part of my message last year, why I believe that I was asked to chair the state coordinator committee. We have made great strides this year to reassemble and revitalize the committee, but much, much more is needed to obtain our goals, which will not be able to be achieved unless budget is allocated accordingly. So thank you, folks, other candidates, because I think our message is very similar throughout.
Okay, Dennis? Dennis?
I don't see Dennis in the list. Is he by chance?
Okay, well, how about Daniel?
Yeah, thanks, Brian. So I think there's really 3 points here that, some have already touched on that I think can really be helpful for WISPA to take involvement at the local level. First is education. One of the things that WISPA has not done in the past that I would really like to see moving forward is open discussion of talking points, lists of talking points, templates, as Brian I think was going after. These are the things we want. This is what you need to be communicating to your local and even federal legislators. Second is that WISPA should be focused on the federal legislation as well, like the recent changes to OTARD. If we can solve some of these problems at the federal level, then the local uninformed legislators don't have a chance to make life difficult. Third is I think that these state coordination thing needs some restructuring. A lot of trade organizations do districts, regions, regional shows, regional discussions. So the current meetings can be expanded a bit further for local advocacy.
Thank you. Cameron?
Thank you. I would dare say I'm with the majority in understanding that we certainly need some more funding to help drive the local and state legislation to really understand what WISPA can do and get WISPA more engaged at that level, particularly as it resolves to state level authorities, broadband task force, committees, etc., and how we can get involved either and get in front a lot of those funding challenges where we often find ourselves battling against incumbents. Though I now represent a vendor, I have been essentially my entire adult life an operator and still own some, and I still fight these challenges day in and day out with local legislation where education becomes a problem, much like Daniel just said, and working obviously at the federal level to get rules in place with things like OTARD will have an impact. We still have to overcome some of those local challenges in battling rules and trying to get past those barriers so we actually can build network to solve these broadband gaps we keep finding.
Thank you. And last but not least, Justin.
Yeah, excuse me. I think the first step is we need to get folks talking, even at the state level, talking to your neighbors, getting WISPA to help facilitate that. We've been pretty active here in Indiana the past couple of years with our state meeting, and I think one of the things that's really been beneficial is we're bringing in some of the folks that have traditionally been outsiders. I see more and more phone companies, ILEC, CLEC, getting into the wireless space. So being a good neighbor to them and collaborating with them is bringing them into the fold is a pretty good thing to do. And as providers get more and more into fiber, that kind of blends together. So bringing in all these local resources is definitely needed, and being able to leverage what WISPA currently has to help coordinate these. We've had Steve Coran into our meetings several times, and that's been a huge draw. So just being able to get the conversations going, and hey, how'd you do this? How'd I do that? And kind of grow from there.
Okay, thank you. The second question provided was broadbandnow.com shows as today 1,545 companies that are in the fixed wireless internet service provider business in the U.S. These stats are collected based on 477 submissions, and so there are probably more WISPs out there not listed. How, as a board member, will you help focus WISPA's efforts in recruiting over 800 additional fixed wireless internet service providers into the U.S. by becoming WISPA members who are not? First one up, we will do Todd.
Okay. I see this being done via a variety of means, which includes expansion of our member services, support for our state coordinators and the WISP that are helping us to serve, continuation of the regional seminars, further development of the newly formed education and best practices committees. Of course, I need to state this because I've seen it throughout this last year as the secretary and to the board, and that is that Claude and staff needs full participation from our membership in order to justify and expand our services. For example, Claude has been working to obtain a health insurance for members, but only 1/3 of the membership responded, making it tough for WISPA to obtain a quote at all, let alone a competitive one for the membership. So we needs to be two-way communications. We all need to work together to fight our cause. Thank you.
Thank you. Cameron?
Thank you. I don't think there's one easy answer. I think we obviously all need to work together as an association to bring on new members and let them show what the benefits of WISPA are. Has been, from my perspective, I've seen kind of the big thorn in the side is what do I get by joining WISPA? And often we have a struggle with delivering a consistent message to potential new members on what they are going to get, whether that be financial benefits, things of that nature. And to Todd's point is we do need to get two-way communication in place, and we need to have a lot of follow-up as our community, as an association, to make sure that our neighbors who are also members, we have healthy dialogue with all of them to get them to participate, because it's going to be for the betterment of the entire industry.
Thank you. Justin.
I think kind of goes into the state thing. These members need, or potential members need to know what WISPA is about. They need to, some of them need a lot of one-on-one. Hey, what benefit does my company get out of this? And I think the state and regional shows and meetings will really help with that. And I've seen several members come to the big meetings and they kind of get lost in it. So it kind of overwhelms them. So being able to have more one-on-one, one of the things I've been trying to do with, just folks in our state is, hey, I'm going to be here this day. Let's get together and talk. So I think if we have more dialogue between members and potential members, then that just kind of spreads out.
Great. Dave.
Yes, thank you. Again, I agree very much with the last statements of dialogue between operators. There's so much knowledge to help WISPs grow and get over the challenges that we've all been through, and that personal attention from either the state coordinator, or if the WISPs are competing with that state coordinator, that coordinator maybe needs to talk with a WISP on the other side of the state to make these personal contacts and see what they can do to help that WISP with their biggest problem. What are they facing? Is it really competition? Is it money? Is it technology? Or are they really doing it just as a hobby, and yet they're being called a WISP? And whatever their challenge may be, I believe WISPA has enough resources and connections with everybody that nobody has to go without help. It's a matter of accepting from the outside. So personal contact is a way to explain the value of WISPA to those non-members.
Thank you. Garth?
Okay. Well, during my current term as a board member, I've actually helped obtain increased contact lists to provide to our membership coordinator on staff, Gary Helmers. And as treasurer and budget director, I've actually allocated funds this past year to update the marketing materials for him, as well as we've funded sending him to other industry trade shows to recruit other vendor members and principal members as well that he sees at those shows. As far as what we can do to increase our appeal to people who want to know what the value proposition is of joining WISPA, I think increasing our educational offerings to more than just twice a year at the 2 trade shows. Also, there's going to be some upcoming discounts and services we're going to be offering new members that Claude's going to be announcing at the WISPA-Palooza show. Unfortunately, some of those are still confidential, so I can't expound on all of them, although I think Cameron did kind of steal a little bit of the thunder on the direction in announcing that at least his vendor company is going to be offering some membership discounts on purchases from them, and we are working with some other folks as well on that. So that's one example. And then for all of you who know me and are active on the list, you know pretty much that I'm always encouraging folks on why you should join WISPA. And I think that personal one-on-one touch, whether it's from a general member or from a board member or anybody, is going to be what it takes to help encourage people that they need to join and participate in supporting our advocacy efforts.
Thanks, Garth. Sorry to cut you off, but we have time to adhere to. Okay, Jeremy?
Yes, thanks. Yeah, I tend to also see this knowledge gap, through the educational lens. And my guess is, that WISPs who don't get WISPA outnumber those who just reject us, who've chosen deliberately not to be members. And I think we can amplify the stories of, how we got here. We can definitely do better on the website. There's not a lot of material there today that's specific to this issue. What is the value that I get as a member? And on the home front, we definitely can get involved in, the state telecom cable fiber association events with volunteer support. And if I can put a plug in for the educational committee, I'm the current chair of that, and we have some great ideas coming up for the next show for, increasing that one-on-one time. So anybody who wants to get involved in that, I encourage you, hit us up. That's definitely, as has been pointed out, that's a growing committee.
Thanks. Keith?
All right. Well, it's hard to put some unique perspectives towards this going last, but I do have a couple thoughts. Number one, I actually think the number of 1,500 WISPs from Broadband Now is on the low side because there are a lot of WISPs who still do not file Form 477. So some of this boils down to the state coordinators trying to get those WISPs into WISPA. Also, I'd like to see the vendors step up and help with recruitment. They already have relationships with these WISPs. They're selling them things. Why can't we do something like put flyers or postcards in every shipment or include links in their newsletters to join WISPA? Lastly, I'd also like to see a new membership category for small independent consultants. I know a number of them have quit WISPA recently because they said it just isn't cost effective. So maybe we could come up with a new membership category that is cost effective to those guys who are out there helping WISPs, but maybe they're just a one-man operation.
Okay, thank you. Brian?
I'd like to see a couple things. Over the years, we've built relationships with other providers around. I just visited a couple WISPs in Kansas this month, and I love sharing best practices. I love talking about failures, and it doesn't matter if they're in the neighboring county or 2 states over. It's a fun discussion, and getting out there and talking to people is huge. And I've managed to receive those introductions through vendors. When a vendor says, "Hey, what do you know about so and so in this community?" I don't know anything about them. Let me find out. So it's a networking. I think it's a simple networking discussion. In fact, I think there should be a 2-hour reception for new attendees. I'm from a town of 35,000 people. I mean, when I go to WISPA, it's a little overwhelming, and walking into a reception designed for new attendees to the WISPA show would make those guys feel a lot more comfortable.
Great. Timothy?
Yes. How are you guys? Everything sounds great. I think that one of the key areas for boosting membership would be wonderful if we could engage the various vendors that we have and encourage them to perhaps promote WISPA through their vendors' operations. I mean, we all buy equipment, purchase equipment. We have several vendors. It would be a great idea for the vendors to also promote WISPA membership. It would be something that I think could enhance our membership.
Thank you. Daniel?
Yeah, so I've got, 2 things I think that really WISPA can improve on. One is the communication on the value. WISPA does overall, I feel, poor job of explaining this is what we want on, this is what we're actually doing. Now, while those efforts have gotten better, the part of the problem is that for perceived value, there's no, here's the 5 top things that we just won for, one, our objectives with the FCC. Second, obviously, association benefits. We're not necessarily good at explaining them, and there's some other things we can do, like the health insurance now and whatnot, but tacking on some of the association benefits would be nice. The last thing I want to say, the vendor, getting vendors to engage to help recruitment, while it sounds like a great idea, they've historically been very against it. One, because it gives exposure to the other vendors, but more importantly, it requires them to give a contact list, which is so important to them. I do think vendor engagement is really important, and I believe that some more focus there can help, but it's certainly that message has to be crafted very carefully on how that information is going to be used.
Thank you. Okay, the third question. How are you going to help prepare and fight to lobby for spectrum enablement? First up, will you do Garth? Garth?
Okay. Am I unmuted now?
Yep.
Okay. In terms of lobbying for spectrum, basically, even before I was a board member, I had attended advocacy day events in DC and was active in responding to NPRM requests for comments, which is something I think more of our members need to actually respond on FCC issues when we're seeking more spectrum or issues that really affect all of us. Since becoming a board member, I've also made 2 additional trips to DC to lobby my congressmen and senators from Illinois. And also the other thing that's important is to support the WISPA so it can be funded with the money it needs to be able to make political donations to candidates that support our position.
Okay, sorry, we're out of time. Okay, Daniel.
Yeah, spectrum enablement is obviously a critical issue for every ISP. The more spectrum we have, more bandwidth we can deliver. I think it's really important to focus on defining the value of enabling spectrum to be provided to ISPs that can't afford to take part in these large auctions, like the announcement around 2.5 gigahertz. We do need to lobby for more unlicensed spectrum but more importantly, find the value and communicate that to Congress and the FCC on why unlicensed spectrum is still very valuable for operators like us and not allow it to go to the incumbent providers like AT&T.
Thank you. Cameron?
Yeah, good points made, particularly as it relates to the 2.5 spectrum and opening up more of that. I was in a very unique position in Maine where I had all the EBS licenses. And I can certainly say that having access to that made it one heck of a difference from a deployment standpoint. However, continuing to grow that into other spectrum bands, expanding the 3 gigahertz further into C-band is going to show significant value to us as operators and really close the need. But from a lobbying perspective, is really push forward to making use of spectrums that carriers are not using and taking a position if it goes unused, how do we get access to that in those rural areas to help benefit our members?
Thank you. Brian?
There's a lot of work to be done on that. I think Claude's a great addition to WISPA. Obviously, I've seen him at a number of events. I'm on the board of Encompass, and we've been at the FCC. I was just there a couple weeks ago. It's concerning to me as far as the industry vying for putting a valuation on some of this frequency that could be available. And that's the kind of policy work that needs to be done. There's some participation needed from members, to go to DC to respond to NPRMs, to understand how their voice has an impact on policy like that. Otherwise, the companies of the world that place a value on this frequency will just drive up the price and make it unusable.
Thank you. Dave?
Yes, thanks. Spectrum is clearly a product that we need more of. We have to do more invitations of our legislative people out to our businesses to show them the impact of it. I'm in favor of both unlicensed and licensed because any spectrum, any and all spectrum that gets newly allocated helps everybody. If it's licensed spectrum, put it this way, fixed wireless is the new hot thing in town for wireline companies that have not traditionally been in fixed wireless. And it is very important to keep this train going on spectrum. The more the FCC can come out and see your usage, licensed and unlicensed, the more that you can get real people stories to them, the more they will react to you. And they also are voted on in their districts, so they need people behind them too. It's real life stories that impact the more frequency that we will get.
Thank you. Keith?
Thanks. I think that spectrum is probably the single largest issue affecting WISPs today. There's just so much interference in the unlicensed bands. The fact is we need more unlicensed spectrum. We also need spectrum that's exclusive for fixed wireless operators. It strikes me as odd that every other communication service has their own spectrum, and WISPs are essentially given the table scraps. And that doesn't sit right with me. Also, on the backhaul front, 11 gigahertz is almost gone in many areas, and we're running out of other backhaul options. WISPs really have no good low-band spectrum, and that's what's needed to service the most non-line of sight customers. 900 megahertz is shared with too many users, and it just doesn't work in most places. In order to get the spectrum, I think we need to go to Congress because it seems like the current FCC is not that interested in helping WISPs out. They're mainly interested in auctioning off spectrum to the carriers and other people who already have it. Another thing I would like to see is all future spectrum bands have a use it or share it, because so many people just buy spectrum and sit on it. Sprint has been sitting on their 2.5 spectrum for nearly 15 years without hardly using it. So spectrum is a national resource. So if they're not going to use it, it should be shared by anybody.
Thank you. Jeremy?
Yeah, I agree with so many of these points. It's primarily a documentation problem. Unlicensed has a fantastic ROI. That's not the whole battle. I don't see it exclusively as a licensed versus unlicensed divide. It's more an urban versus rural. How spectrum is used. Spectrum gets locked up for urban use and lies fallow in rural areas. So we need more flexible shared bands like CBRS, for example, that enable auctions where those auctions are profitable, then allow coordinated use of the band. Kind of a best use of both licensed and unlicensed features. Low cost, but high security. So I'd definitely like to see, as some of these new bands are being opened up, that we continue to push, for new approaches in sharing those bands.
Thank you. Timothy?
Yeah, all of the comments are just wonderful. I think they are right on point. I serve on several boards, and what we've done in the past to engage more awareness is we have hosted several legislative events, and I think WISPA might benefit from doing something like that, having our members encourage our legislators to attend a WISPA-hosted event where we can discuss issues like spectrum, which are vitally important to WISPA. These legislative events that we've hosted have been very successful. Might be something that we might entertain, and it could be something that is beneficial to hear for our legislators to hear the voice of WISPA and the voices of our members. And I think that would go a long ways. As one person already indicated, it's tough to communicate so much with the FCC, but having our legislators aware of WISPA and its importance could really push our agenda further.
Thank you. Justin?
I see two things that need to happen on the lobbying level. The first thing is we need to rally our membership. Do we make it easier for them to file things? We need to have it where it's almost automatic to them. Hey, we need to do this. Let's all rally behind this. And the other thing is to rally our lawmakers. We need to make it personal to them. They need to understand that these WISPs are helping their constituents. They're helping their local communities. They're helping the local senior center. Once they understand that at a state and a national level, then I think they're more willing to help and more willing to listen. We've had several folks out for various members in Indiana, and once they see what's going on, it clicks with them. So doing that, and then also having the membership understand what the lobbying process is. Hey, this is really helping you. You might not see the benefits, but educating them on what's actually going on.
Thank you. Todd?
Okay, thank you. All great comments, and I'll try to touch on some of the same and some different ones as well. Over the last few years, I've been active on the policy committee and volunteered to take the notes so that it would force me to better understand spectrum, better understand what our membership is looking for. what I found is our membership needs low, mid, upper, both licensed and unlicensed to fulfill their needs of today. Things have changed from how they were a few years back. Thus, I see that we need to be involved on the policy. I would be involved in the policy committee and attend fly-ins to help with the federal level. While at the state level, I would like to continue building the state coordinators network, which will greatly fight our local at the grassroots level. And finally, I do plan to run for the FCC Precision Agricultural Connectivity Task Force, which is a very difficult, long word to say, and if so chosen, would greatly represent WISP to fight the spectrum enablement. So if there's anybody else that's considering to run for this new task force, I highly recommend it. I think it could be great for our whole WISPA and WISP. Thank you.
Thank you. Dennis, I see you just joined. Can you go through with question 3?
I am here. Alrighty. Where are we at? I apologize here.
It was how you're going to prepare to fight and lobby for spectrum enablement.
Gotcha. Pretty simple, really. I mean, I will fight as much or as little as, the basically Claude directs. I mean, that is really the job of, our executive director to tell us how and what we need to do. If I need to go to DC and lobby, I can do that. If I need to go to Jeff City here in Missouri and do the same thing, I can do that. It's definitely not a problem. I don't really have any prepared speeches to give to everybody to sit there and say how I can do that, but I'm willing to do it. However, as of yet, I have not been asked to do that. So there you go.
Thank you. All right, question number 4. Given that 80% of our members have less than 2,000 subscribers and 48% of our membership has less than 500 subscribers, how do you plan as a board member to focus WISPA's regulatory efforts back onto the majority of the backbone of our members? Dave, we'll let you go first.
Thank you. Well, as a bigger operator, we just need to listen to these guys. They're running smaller, good small businesses, and you don't have time to go and do all the work that you would like to. So how can we do that? As fellow WISPs, we just need to listen to them. And the big operators need the small as much as the small needs the big. It's not a one-way street here. There's power in numbers. Our numbers in rural America together is what's impacting rural America. And really it takes money. We've heard several people talk here about we need more funding at state levels. We need more funding and with our PAC group, our sister company. And it takes a relationship with big and small. And I don't know any big guys, operators that don't have time to listen to and help small operators. Most all of them were there one day and they recognize it. And my self-experience in this organization, there's more help available if you'll just ask for it. So it's to work together with them.
Thanks. Todd?
Okay, yes, I'm here, sorry. As a board member, I would never forget that I am here to support all members rather than just a few. That said, one of my observations from not only having been a startup WISP to today actively participating on the policy committee is that a majority of our members are busy working the day-to-day and cannot afford to take the time to actively participate on the committee. On the policy committee, I would look to continue to fight for, like I said, low, mid, upper, both licensed and unlicensed to fulfill the needs of our total membership. I think our policy committee has done a great job in recent times doing that. Additionally, I'm hopeful that the new small provider working group led by Blair Davis may be a further step to answering this call. For example, Blair is on our policy committee, and I'm hoping that he's assembling the thoughts and bringing them and they're all being listened to as well as the big. Of course, as state coordinator, I'm continuing to listen and respond to the state coordinators as issues arise as well. So thank you.
Thanks, Todd. Daniel?
I think WISPA's done, a number of things in the last year specifically to further their outreach to the smaller wireless ISPs. And some of this goes back to the recruitment. A lot of the ISPs we don't have tend to be smaller. So it is, once again, it's about education. It's about delivering the value that they're looking for. I also do think, though, that the question itself is rooted in some misconception of what WISPA has done or why WISPA is doing it. I would continue to support WISPA fighting for things like CAF2 because every opportunity we get to be in front of legislators, the FCC, to talk about broadband, regardless if the end result ends up helping the small or big operators, it gives us a chance to fight for the small guys and to also keep coming back and delivering our message. So,
thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Daniel. Cameron?
I think it's important to recognize those that have been big operators or likely once small operators, and it's going to be good to kind of show them the leadership that we have and continue to work as a team to really understand the struggles they're going through. A lot of the struggles that I went through starting in wireless ISP in 1998 are a lot different than the people that are starting in 2019. And we need to make sure that we can adapt to all of those changes as they go and show them why we need their support as much as they need ours. And that is the message I want to give.
Thank you. Jeremy?
I joined WISPA because of the current focus, on the needs of all WISPs. As we've heard, a rising tide, lifts all boats. And there are very few policies that we can point at to say, hey, the needs of the big guys are overriding the needs of the small guys. We don't win every battle, but every policy issue that comes by the policy committee is really considered from, the angle that, we don't want to damage any of our members. I consider the impact to small operators as part of my DNA. I have a difficult time supporting any efforts of things that don't enable small members to grow. That is the goal. So, I think we're doing a good job today, and we've got some great stuff coming down the pipe to make sure that those smaller voices are heard, those people who are too busy to speak up.
Thank you. Brian?
I believe Dave said this earlier, just listening and talking to members. I mean, keeping the ear to the ground and understanding everybody's concerns. But I can tell you this, there shouldn't be a discussion about big or small, because in the end we're all working towards that goal, right? And everybody in the end should be a sizable operator. And so anything that affects a big operator is going to affect a small operator in the end. And so it's all important, whether it's designed around what would be referred to as a big company or designed around a small company. In the end, it's important for all.
Thank you. Garth?
First, just a slight correction. The regulatory policy isn't really set by the board. It's set by the policy committee, which is made up of regular members like you and me. However, if the point of this question is that you feel the board should be diverse, and I think our current board has representatives from every class of members. So if you're looking for reps for the small under 2,000 count right now on the board today, that's Blair Davis and myself. So if it's important that you want a small operator on the board, then I would hope you would vote for me.
Okay, Dennis?
I'll just reiterate exactly what was just said. I don't think we need to refocus our efforts. We will refocus the efforts whenever the need arises, and that's what we have the policy committee for. The policy committee basically sets our goals and all that kind of good stuff. It's really kind of outside the purview of what the board of directors actually does, even though we do have some input into that. I feel that we have a excellent plan, and as far as any members that are small or large, anything that helps WISPs in the end will help all WISPs. Doesn't matter if they're big or small.
Okay, Justin?
I think the thing that needs to be looked at is how do we get both big and small members to see the benefits. Once some come to the shows, they see the benefits there, but everybody has businesses to run, so getting them to make that first step. It's all about effort versus reward. So once they start seeing some benefits, they're going to be more active and dedicate some more time. So I think we just need to get the message out to both large and small members of, hey, this is what WISPA can do for you.
Okay, Timothy?
I agree with everything that was said, and I understand the policy committee makes those drives that agenda. I heard one of the candidates talk about diversity, and I think that I can bring to the table also some diversity. I really believe that we're in this together, and the focus of WISPA right now, I think, is great. I think you're doing a great job already. Just continue to educate our members on issues that affect them and could also promote growth to the smaller WISP is key. But primarily, everybody has said exactly what I feel, and it's just good to hear that I'm surrounded with guys that all believe that we're in this together.
Thank you. Keith?
Thank you. So I'm glad this question was asked because I'm the only new candidate here who represents the 80% of WISPA members with 2,000 or less customers. So it will be my primary focus to ensure policies benefit WISPs of all sizes, but especially the small ones. I feel like current WISPA policy tends to trend towards items that support larger WISPs. I'd also like to see the WISPA bylaws updated to support a more diverse board by requiring board members from each membership size category. So a vote for me is a vote for the 80%. Thank you.
Thank you. Fifth and final question. What are the first three goals that you want to bring to the board should you be elected? Brian Worthen, we'll have you go first.
Oh, that's awesome. I get to go first. Bring into the board, it's that experience, it's that discussion, it's that collaboration. The WISPA show's not just a vendor showcase. It's a chance for everybody to get together and talk about those shared practices and talk about failures and translating that into the board is important. Having the board talk about challenges their members are facing, whether it is these municipalities or frequency or whatnot, it's a holistic, community-driven effort, and that's what I hope to bring to the board.
Thank you. Timothy?
Yes, primarily my experience as a nonprofit board member on several boards and working in cohesiveness. I think my ability to help execute plans and ideas, and as well as help promote and bring another arm. And I think we have a stronger social media drive for WISPA and our board members and our members themselves. So one of the goals will be to engage in helping promote us through other means of communication so that the WISPA name is there, but also working collectively, collaboratively with the existing agenda focus, because WISPA is so valuable, so important. And as a minority in this group candidate, I think it's been thrilled to be a part of WISPA, and that's why I joined WISPA. I joined WISPA to get involved so I can help promote the ideals of WISPA, and a vote for me would bring that kind of goal and achievements. Hopefully we can realize them together. Thank you.
Thank you. Daniel.
Yeah, I think my biggest priority or goal would be to increase communication. I think I've said that on most of my responses from WISPA to the membership. Also, I'm looking to work with the staff. That'll be a new experience for me, in that we have a much greater staff in a lot of different areas. I think there's a lot of initiatives that we can continue to take. And I really look forward to promoting a lot of those values with our new staff.
Thank you. Todd?
Yes, I'm looking at saying for my first three goals is to, one, continue to listen to the membership and advocate on their behalf. Second, to help promote the education and training to our full membership through the state coordinators network, to build it out so that the state coordinators are empowered to carry out the mission locally amongst all the WISP in their state. And third, to represent WISPA in the most professional and knowledgeable manner that I can possibly do.
Thank you. Jeremy?
Yes, thank you. I'll be very brief. 3 goals: education and mentoring inward to our membership, evangelism outward, spectrum policy. I see that WISPA is in a really healthy state with this current slate of nominees, and honestly, I'd be happy if you vote for any of them. But as far as our goals, there's still room for improvement. I'm a problem solver. I tend to see things in that light. I'm convincing, and I'm not shy.
Thank you. Garth?
I believe the first goal of a board member is to be listening to and representing their members, and I think I have a proven track record of being accessible to our members by email, Facebook groups, or by phone, or in person at the shows. While I can't guarantee every time that we're going to take your position, I can guarantee you that I listen to what you have to say. Second, I will intend to continue to strengthen our membership benefits that we're working with the staff on adding and will be announced at the show in the fall. And then third, in my role as WISPA treasurer the past 2 years, I've done much to improve the oversight and strength of WISPA's financial position. And I'm currently working with the staff on the accounting related processes as we transition to a new association management software package. And I'd like to be reelected so I continue to see that process through to completion.
Thank you. Justin?
So my 3 goals are grow the membership by further education of WISPA. Second is increase the educational offerings for our members. And 3, work for the members. I mean, that's why I'm running for the board. I want to work for the members out there. I want to represent the folks like me, and I want to just do a good job for them.
Thank you. Keith?
So my number 1 priority for WISPA is definitely spectrum, both licensed and unlicensed, point to multipoint and backhaul. My second goal is to just increase awareness of our industry. It seems like so many people out there, both in government, even at the local level, don't even know what a WISP is. I think we all need to work together to just educate Americans on what WISPs are and what we do. The last goal is to just provide more value to the membership, or even more perceived value, by communicating what the benefits are, but also having more education, more benefits, more discounts and services offered to the membership. I would also like to say that I've owned my WISP for 15 years. I've been in the industry 20 years, since my very first job when I was 15 years old working at a dial-up ISP. So I'm here to support ISPs of all sizes, so please vote for me.
Thank you. Dennis?
All righty, 3 goals. Number 1, we still need to have the financial oversight. Garth has been doing an excellent job, and I think I really help him with that as among our conversations, trying to make sure that the organization has the resources to do the spectrum policy, to do the FCC trips, all the different things that we do on a year-by-year basis. So that's really, really important. I've always had a really good relationship with WISPs. We have probably, 2,000 of them in our database that we work with on a regular basis. And obviously I hear from many of them, and they put my, their 2 cents into me, and I take it up the chain if I see that is necessary. So those are pretty much the goals, to continue to do what I've been doing for the past 5-6 years at least. And then there was a stint prior to that I was on the board of directors for at least 3 more years. So I've been doing it, and I would like to continue to do it for all of the members.
Thank you. And last but not least, Dave.
Okay, well, first of all, industry advocacy. Midco is a fairly large company, not a very large WISP, but educating the other people in our industry is just about WISPA, about fixed wireless, and about what we can do at the spectrum is just as important as going to the FCC. Because if we have industry like NCTA, which as a cable operator we're a member of, if we educate them, they might not fight us. And a lot of times unknown, all the different industries fight against each other. So bringing industry together can really help. Number two, time. I've never had been in a position like this where my employer actually is paying me to spend time on the board. I didn't take it away from my WISP, so I'm not going to be a board member that just shows up for the meeting, goes back and runs my business. And so third, it's experience. I've been the small operator and now up to a big operator. I think I can understand any messages that come to me, and I'm willing to help with them. So time and experience and advocacy are my values. Please vote.
Thank you. And sorry, Cameron, one last.
Thank you. The three things I see here, one is obviously the spectrum policy, which we've covered in other questions. I think that goes without saying, that's important. But having a reasonable understanding of everybody's opinion and taking that into account to make an overall decision for the betterment of our business is going to be good for everybody. A lot of that comes to me. I look at everybody that's a WISPA member that won a lot of CAF money. To me, that's one of the most important things to see through success as our particular association, because that is really kind of our coming out party, if you will, that we are here. We can do exactly what you've been throwing money at to all the incumbents for a long time, but we can do it better, we can do it faster, and we can do it cheaper.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for taking your time out of this afternoon, this hour, spending with us and the candidates. Taking the position on the WISPA board is something that's very serious. It does help shape our livelihood and affect a lot of lives of not only the customers we serve, the employees we have, and the vendors we support, but it is very good for the communities. It's one of the reasons why we're all in this together. One final thought. Again, for everybody that's on the call and on the webinar, any of these candidates would be great to have positioned at that seat on the board. And I hope that obviously for the ones that do not get elected, that we can, let you help support WISPA in other ways through committees and other activities, because it's not just a board that actually does this. It's the staff, it's the committees, and so forth. So we want to make sure that we try to get as much involvement from everybody, even the people that aren't on this call, to help out, join WISPA and support the things that we do, but to be able to help move our businesses forward and, again, support all the people the lives and families that we affect. With that, thank you very much, and we will talk to you guys later, and good luck, everybody. Take care.
Thank you.